Yo, what the hell's up? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching The Wasteland. The Wasteland is a new Spanish film on Netflix in which we have a small family that moves out to the middle of nowhere, living isolated off the fruits of the land. Then one day the father decides to go on an excursion, leaving the mother and the son to fend for themselves. Against not only a beast that starts appearing on their land, but also against the land itself, the Wasteland. An aptly named film, perfectly describing the selection of movies I have to work with this early in the year. No, this movie did not leap off the page at me. No, I did not think it was going to be very good when I watched the trailer, but seriously, what were my options? See the 555 and kick off 2022 with a generic ass action movie like I did 2021? No thank you. I told myself I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna be patient. I'm not gonna pop the cherry of 2022 the same way I did last time with a movie I was not enthusiastic about. I was perfectly content waiting until Scream next week to kick things off this year, but then I'm scrolling through Netflix and I see this, and I watch the trailer and I say, at least it's free. And I gotta admit, the production value of this movie did really surprise me, and we'll start the pros right there. The cinematography in this film is outstanding. I mean, this is a sleek looking film. You get some great compositions and interesting camera movements to some very great use of color, a very wide spectrum from very brimstone warms to eerie cools. As I mentioned before, this movie takes place in the middle of nowhere, the desert. It's undoubtedly another COVID film. I mean, this is social distance as fuck. And as a result, you get some really beautiful nature photography. I mean, I was really impressed with the way that this film looked. This leads to some fantastic atmosphere. I mean, this is a period piece. I believe it takes place in the 1900s. In the middle of nowhere. I mean, that isolated feel. At times it captures the essence of movies like The Witch or It Comes at Night, where you're kind of just draping everything with a layer of uneasiness from that isolation. It's like a battle back to sticks and bones, and seeing these characters work through this conflict with like one hand tied behind their back. There is no relying on any modern technology or anything to get them out of that. Just an intriguing battle to see happen. As a result, there actually are some really great memorable sequences. Not all of them are great. There are some really bad jump scares in the film, admittedly, but some of the stuff really actually works. Times where they actually leaned into the tension, or they utilized toys and items from the era, or maybe working in the weather into the mix. It was all very creative, and I appreciated the outside the box thinking. I also appreciated the creature design of the beast. Granted, this is not a creature feature, so don't get your hopes up to think that you're gonna see this thing a lot. It's not gonna happen. Our big creepy bad does not show his ugly mug very often, but when he does, it is skin crawling stuff. It looked like something Geralt from The Witcher would be hired to kill, and that, I think, says something. However, that being said, while I was impressed by a lot of the things visually of this film, sometimes the sequencing and the way that it was stitched together in post was not always my prerogative, and that leads me to the cons. There were several head-scratching decisions made in the way that this film was editing, starting with the overabundance of mids and close-ups. Look, I love tight shots as much as the next guy. That perspective always lends some serious beauty to a sequence, but when you take a fully edited sequence, it's the wide shots that give you a little bit of context. If you're watching a sequence comprised of exclusively tight shots without seeing the wide shot to know where all of these things are located in the frame, you feel like you're just being tossed around like a freaking football. There are a lot of scenes and sequences where they don't cut out to a wide shot till way down the line, and it's really tough to navigate those scenes. Another problem that I had, which leads me to the next several cons, was a lot of tonal inconsistencies. This film is a quick hour and a half, and I feel like they try and tackle way too many emotions in that short amount of runtime. You got some dark, eerie, creepy scenes. You got really bright, happy, warm scenes. You get a lot of dramatic slow-mo here and there. I mean, it all just kind of feels like it's just kind of hucked in there. I'm kind of lobbing it in with the editing problem because I feel like a lot of these issues could have been remedied by the editor. From the color grading to the music implementation of the soundtrack, which leads me to another con. I didn't hate the soundtrack for this film. In fact, there are a lot of really great pieces in there that I would have loved to hear independent of the film. The problem was I didn't feel like they really fit the tone of the movie. I rarely felt that the music was actually accenting the things I was seeing on screen. In fact, I thought thought if anything, they were battling the things that were happening on screen. It was very conflicting, which is tough because this particular plot, much like the characters within it, could not afford to have any handicaps. This plot and story is very slow and grueling. For it being an hour and a half, it felt way longer, which can be fine. Slow movies can work. Hell, last year, The Night House and Nomadland were both pretty slow burns and they were in my top 5. The difference is both those movies were interesting, and at the end of the runtime, I just was not interested in this story. I think a big reason for that is the fact that this plot and story is really derivative of a 2014 horror film. Once I drew parallels between this movie and that one, I could not get it out of my head. I'm not gonna say what movie in the event that you wanted to watch it. I feel like it would kind of ruin the experience if you had that thought in your head, but let's just say if you've seen both movies, it stands out like a sore thumb. So it's a plot that we've all seen before. We've seen it done better with much more interesting characters. The characters in this film are incredibly polarizing, like beyond feasibility. The father and mother are so drastically different that I just did not buy their dynamic from the very beginning. And as the film progresses, characters just start to change in such drastic, extreme ways that I just did not feel like it was earned. It was such a harsh transition. I don't know if this film is supposed to be metaphorical. I did not really dive too deep into it. I imagine it is because at face value, it doesn't really hold water. And the film that is clearly ripping off of is a very metaphorical film, so I imagine it's swimming in the same ponds of symbology. But I just didn't think that this narrative worked. Regardless which lens I look at it, metaphorical or literal, neither one really work. There were bright spots for sure. Sometimes it felt like they were really being effective and coherent in their storytelling. Other times they just got lazy. Like using certain plot devices to push forward the narrative, like the family bunny rabbits. There were several instances where the kid would pick up a bunny rabbit and start talking to it, and all those conversations were just exposition for us, the audience, to get inside his head, and it felt so forced and unnecessary. There was one instance in particular where he picks up the bunny rabbit and says, "This is happening, I have to go do this." And then he goes and does it. I could not help but think, I didn't need that whole bunny rabbit sequence. I could have pieced it together on my own. We're big boys and girls. The challenging part is having a film with characters with a lot of internal conflict. There's no way to get inside their head unless you have like a Dexter thing going on where he's narrating the story. It works for a book or a novel, and maybe this story could have worked a lot better with a different medium, but as a film, I just did not think that this narrative worked, even when they were pulling rabbit tricks out of the hat. All in all, this is a very good looking film, but outside of that, you could probably just scroll right past it. I'm going to give The Wasteland a C-. But that is just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date. New reviews coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.